Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you're having a wonderful day. We are back again with another PWCC slash Fanatics weekly review. I'll probably continue to do that for a while now, but going through the top 100, as always, if you enjoy these weeklies, do make sure to leave a like. Helps me, helps the channel, would appreciate it greatly. With that said, let's go ahead and get on over there. So we made our way on over there. To start this week, we were at $80, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker, at least to the bottom half if I can. I always try to, but alas, I talk about too many cards. So, in the first row, we have 3 Hollands here. I was sort of wondering, at least to myself, when I went through this, which one I would rather have in this row. And to me, I guess the Japan out of 50, just because it's gold. And Japan, while it is different, and it's sort of a different Topps Chrome release for that year, while there are others, Japan cards, at least to me, aren't terrible. Like, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just accustomed to Pokemon where people kind of like Japanese cards. I'm sure in soccer that probably doesn't translate as well, but the gold gets me. The blue bubbles, I just don't like parallels that don't even seem to make sense to me, and the red out of 149 isn't bad. But continuing on up, I thought this Adeyemi seemed like a cheap price. Obviously, Adeyemi's not really the prospect, at least he hasn't been up until this point, that people were hoping, so of course he's going to dip in price, but $80 for PSA 10 out of 50 from Sapphire's not bad. Beyond that, row above that, we have a Wayne Rooney, a 99 Thierry Henry that I don't see all too often, and a Barca Legends card. I am sort of taking issue, at least generally speaking, with the throwback cards and stuff of the sort where, it's sort of a prelude for post-playing days that we will eventually see for Messi and Ronaldo, and I am worried about how many people seemingly don't care that it's their true kit from that year, and it's, I think that plays out over time where people will care more, but sort of during this intermediary time, it's interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, not that this is a crazy price, but $90 basically for a raw out of 50 from 2022 Topps Chrome Barca Legends. Those are my thoughts, but, it is what it is at the end of the day. Gold Messi, people are going to like it. Beyond that, we have a Panini sticker. There's a bunch of these. We've sort of seen them a lot the last month or so I'm kind of bored of them by now. And they all sort of blend to me, so I won't be looking any of them up, really, but $93 there for a 9. We have a 52 Hungarian team picture with Puskás, and classifies as a rookie, but not really a rookie, but like early, so I guess pop one of 1 and higher on that. In this row, you have a $98 Messi from the 2022 Panini Instant, where he won the World Cup, of course. These typically are between like 100 and 160, so this is on the lower end, I would say. We have a Vecchi Garincha that is an SGC Authentic. This one is definitely authentic, but also pretty badly beaten up. So basically, there's no real borders. The edges are sort of cut. The colors, all brutally beaten in the back. You can't really see anything, so it's about as bad as it's going to get, but I personally, I had it favorited, and maybe this is something I would have won after if I didn't already have one last week, at least more aggressively. I don't mind adding sort of terrible copies for cheap, though. Like, this was at like 50, 60 bucks on the final day, and I was like, yeah, why not? Gets a okay price. Ones typically, or at least the one that I got, went for 300. They usually go for like 200 to 400, so an authentic at 98 makes sense. A couple sticker autos here from 2022 U.S. Women's National Team. We have a 99 PSA 9 Zidane going for a little over 100, a Gary Lineker rookie. Also the Select Few, which I'm guessing is a rerun, because we saw one of these recently, and I don't think I ever see these on here. So this PSA 9 felt like a decent price on the Bergman, 110. The Idemar Pele, I actually want to take a look at this just because I don't check much 60s Pele, because it all sort of blends in my mind, but I wanted to see how this was doing. Basically, it's at 110 right now. From what I found earlier, at least looking backwards, a PSA 2 back last year was 200. There were also PSA 1s lingering between 150 and 200. So it seems like it's dropped a little bit, but nothing, I guess, all too crazy on a Pele that you do see a decent bit, at least, I do myself in these weeklies. Got a KDB auto. This one, I got no clue why they still make these rookie mistakes, which pun intended, because why are they naming a 2010 Lewandowski a rookie? I don't get it. There's clearly 2 before that, and they sell them fairly often. I don't understand. I don't know if it's the person submitting it that is requesting that it has rookie in the title. I don't know if this is PWCC just putting it in the title, but there should be some sort of accountability or process between getting the idea that it is a rookie and then actually figuring out that it is a rookie and not labeling things as such. Now, of course, this doesn't really trick anyone. I don't think his rookies in a PSA 10 go for probably thousands. Depending on which one it is, would be how high or low. But I mean, they go for thousands. So clearly no one's really, bidding all out thinking this is a rookie. But on other things where it's, less sort of obvious, that might be the case, right? 2002 David Beckham looks pretty good. Pop 1 of 2, one higher. We have a 68 Mira Tuttosport Pele and a 1 that goes for 115. We have another Adeyemi up here, not a 50 auto, PSA 10 that goes for 117. 58 Ruiz Romero, which honestly I don't think I've ever seen before. You don't see this set much because Pele's not in it. It has like 8 or 10 Brazilian players, but none of which are Pele, so kind of a miss there. But Pop 1 of 1, 6 grade higher goes for 120. I looked this up because personally I was sort of interested, and we don't see it that often, but I guess a PSA 1 recently went for $38, so comparatively to that, seems like a pretty strong sale. PSA 5 did $390, so seems like it's in the right spot. Beyond that, we have a Heung-min Son auto, we have a Gareth Bale auto, some more Messi stickers. This Nanina Rivera always sticks out to me. So beautiful. PSA 2 Pop 1 of 1, 6 higher goes for 132. 75 Editor Finney Cruyff. PSA 4 goes for 140. I don't think I've seen this all too often, but it doesn't have the pop underneath it, so I wouldn't presume that it is something of rarity. But honestly, you can't find a lot of 70s Cruyff for as common as you would think 70s is. I just don't see a lot of it pop up on Toto nor PWCC, so just something I've sort of had to deal with, I guess. As someone that would just like some Cruyff, it's kind of difficult. 62 Saravan Pele, this goes for 138. There is an orange above it that went for 144. At least according to these pops, the orange would seemingly be more rare. But the orange also does kind of have a cut corner there on the bottom, so I think that's why it doesn't do at least more of a premium over the green. 92 Figo, PSA 4 goes for 144 here. Pretty nice looking one, and an okay price. Obviously fairly low grade, but these don't pop up a lot, being a Pop 1 of 3, 8 higher. Ronaldinho Watsi, PSA 6 here goes for 150, which is kind of low compared to some of the higher grades, but naturally that's going to be the case. 150 still fairly respectable, I would say. Especially considering this is sort of a gaming card. I mean, it looks pretty childish and not in the typical sort of way, more in the game card format where people seem to less prefer that type of stuff. But I think the Watsi name also helps out a little bit considering the prominence of said name. 69 Rally Pele here in a 1.5 goes for 150. Pop 1 of 1, one higher. I think there might be something to do with like PSA changing how they label that in terms of, I don't think that's a Pop 1 of 1 none higher, because I feel like I've seen these before. Now maybe it's the same photo on a different sticker that I'm not registering, but 150 at least for a Pop 1 of 1, one higher Pele generally would be a super steal just because of people putting the PSA registry together. So, I'm going to say that that's probably not true, but maybe I'm wrong. If you're in the know or looking for that, just, do some more research. But 150 there. Out of 25, PSA 10 Jude goes for 156. A Joga Bonito. 1976 Zaravan Zico goes for, 156 and a PSA 6. I looked this one up because I felt like it was kind of light. I mean, the last 8 went for 720, and that was a Heritage auction, which typically Heritage doesn't do great for soccer, considering they just don't have a ton of items, and when they do, people might not even know they're there. So 720 to 156 based off of lowering a couple grades, a pretty significant drop, I would say. When you go back, last PSA 6 sold for 264 last year, so yeah, it's like 40% down from there as well. We have a Lamine Yamal rookie, 2023, PSA 10 going for 174. This Grinch a 2 goes for 174, which feels like a pretty good price, considering we saw a 7 last week go for like 7 and 900, somewhere in there. We have a 64 Eusebio here, Victoria Heroes da Bola. Never seen this one. Looks kind of weird. Doesn't really have anything going on the back, so I can't really take much away from the release style. I don't really know too much about it, and I'm not a huge Eusebio guy, so I'm not in the know. But definitely not your sort of typical release, or at least what you expect to see from 60s Portugal, so I can see why it does a low number. Maybe that's a super steal and someone got something very unique, or it could be something that just isn't graded at other companies. You always sort of have to wonder that with these one-offs that you don't see too often. Especially in a 4 only doing 180, at least that indicates to me, probably more so the latter than the former. Above that, an Otto Bergman goes for nearly 200. Feels like a fair price, about what they go for, considering they're fairly common cards, and also Beckenbauer signature's fairly common, but still respectable. The Stadium Club Chrome out of 10, kind of just a disappointing price to see. I mean, any out of 10 Messi playing days, I almost figure should be worth $200 based off what I see. This is second year Stadium Club. People say they like Stadium Club. I do myself. I think that some of the pictures are really, really good, but I do think the parallels, like here, an electric charge, it doesn't really do it for me. So 192, I guess I can sort of see why, but it is interesting. We have a Mirar Sprint Pele, PSA 1 MK, going for nearly 200 there. Prize Footballers Holland, this is, I guess, a fairly decent sale compared to past comps, but about where it's been for a while now. 200 for a PSA 10. We have a 91 Figo here, sort of a nice looking one. It has a calendar on the back like the one we saw earlier, I'm pretty sure. Looking at the Figo, it's always one that stuck out to me in terms of design. It's not something you see all too often where someone's in like a pog style in the middle of the card and you have the kit around it. It does have the sort of calendar on the back there for 91 at 92. But yeah, pretty cool one. We also have Mason Mount Color Blast there at 222. We have an Alifa team photo at 222 as well, and a Mosaic sticker auto of Beckenbauer. I always sort of wonder in my head, like a 2020 sticker auto Mosaic Beckenbauer versus a on-card in person from 1966. Of course, with this, you have less authenticity, but you do have the added fact that the player held the card, and it's sort of a playing days card. While comparatively, at least this is licensed and not in person. In person's also a little sketchy, at least myself. I trust what PSA is doing for now, but I do imagine, especially, on some of the bigger players and that type of stuff, that people can fake autos, and so that's always got me a little nervous. But at least early days in terms of the stuff getting graded now, I feel a little bit better about it, especially when you know that Beckenbauer signs as much as he does. And sort of typically what it looks like. So Neymar 1 of 1, again, Leaf always showing that you can, make 1 of 1s that are extremely cheap. So there are things out there for everyone, I guess. But I think this is a national thing also, which is even more, whatever. Goes for 234. Beyond that, a Garnacho, there you go, out of 25. A White Ice goes for 234 as well. Still some prospecting being done despite the prior season, but we have a Vinny Auto out of 10 from 2022 NT sticker, and we have a BGS 10 of 2018 Mbappe going for 240. Don't see that all too often, at least in a BGS 10. Up in this row, I did lose one. I lost a couple tonight. I am a sad man. But first off, this Cosmic Ronaldo at least stuck out to me. I thought it was a pretty good premium. I'm unsure sometimes on if these type of cards are going to get a PSA 10 premium, and it seemed to have. Yeah, last PSA 9 was $60. Before that, you see some stargazings with a PSA 10 at $145. There was a PSA 9 back in the day that apparently went for $250. So if we do go far enough back, there are some PSA 9s that were selling for near this price. But at least compared to the last sales, I thought that this was fairly decent. This Grincha from 1958 went for $264. I was pretty keen on the comps beforehand, sort of wanted it. This one had been selling at least like 3 to 4 times in the last year, this exact copy. I don't think they were shilled because I know this one came from another collector, but even before that, they were typically getting held for like 3 to 4 months, and I can sort of follow the trail of where they were. But this one goes for $264. Last sold for, I think, $300, maybe $350. There also was a bad PSA 1 on eBay that went for maybe like $115. It wasn't graded, actually. It was raw. But like a PSA 1, presumably, that went for like $115 on eBay. So I thought that this was a pretty good price. At least comparatively, it is down a little, but generally I felt it was fair. Hence why, I sort of stopped. I figure maybe at a different point I could get another one, maybe a higher grade. We have this 1970 Adis Payland, PSA 4 goes for $288. Prize Footballers out of 5, Erling Haaland goes for $300. I mean, at least that stuck out to me as like a modern card that seemed reasonably priced. But at the end of the day, how much does a 2022 finest footballers or prize footballers mean? I guess that's to be interpreted by everyone, if you care to at least. 2017 Immaculate Modern Marks Wayne Rooney out of 25 goes for $300, and a PSA 6, which honestly at that point I don't even think that should be graded, but nonetheless, kudos for the seller of being transparent and still selling it graded. Lamine Yamal PSA 10 goes for $312. This is down, the lowest price for Lamine Yamal Mega Crack since pre-Euros, where there wasn't as much hype in, but it is up still like 2 to 3x since pre-Euros, but it seems to be coming back down. We would look at the pricing, but there's going to be another one later that we'll take a peek at. Saravan, this is a PSA 2 of the same PSA 1 we saw earlier. Gets a nice little grading premium on that one. Kevin Keegan on Card Inception goes for $372. 2010 Messi PSA 10 goes for $372 right there. Nice little sticker. We have an Uwe Zela and Beckenbauer signed card from 66 going for 372. Pretty cool to see both of them signed. I see sometimes with one or the other, but seeing both is nice. I don't think I've ever seen one with all three, which would be pretty cool, but no shuns to be found. We then have a Zico from 75, this Saeta. At least it stuck out to me as sort of a low price, and I guess it is, at least when we compare back to last comp. So, last comp was a 1.5 in 2022 that did nearly 2,000. So comparatively to that, that is a pretty low sale. Now it is a PSA 3, but it's miscut, so it's probably around a 1.5, maybe a 1 in terms of grade. Obviously pretty miscut when you look at this 3 here, and the colors are a bit off, but the colors are so good anyways, and it already looks psychedelic that, I mean, you know, it's just adding at that point to the aesthetic. But 384 seemed like a pretty good deal. At least, you know, comparatively, we have an out of 10 tops now of Lamine Yamal. I know, modern, you know, the hyped guy everyone's talking about, but like, again, you know, Zico, one of the best Brazilians all time. Not rookie, but early and really cool release here from the 75 Saeta. And fairly rare with only one prior comp, goes for a good bit lower. This PSA 10 Ronaldo seems to have gotten a pretty good premium over the 9s. The 9s go for about 100, 120. Last 10 comps were a couple years ago, and that was like multiple thousands, but they've come back down. It is a really nice looking Ronaldo, I will give it that. Pretty stylish there with the Barca kit, and not something all too easy to find with the Barca kit, generally speaking. 65 Beckenbauer, so I sort of looked at this already, but the colors are really good. The back's okay, it's what you'd expect for a 1. You can read most of it. I thought this was pen, but after looking a bit deeper, I think it's just like a thin tip Sharpie. Personally, I value pen a little bit more, because at least that says to me earlier career, especially if it has an earlier style auto, which this does not, but still gets around what they've been going for, near about 500 when they sell typically. We have an authentic altered Pele Aquarella for 468, a Lamine Yamal auto. I feel like we've seen this go before. I don't know if it's different copies, but I feel like I've seen this already at least 2 or 3 times. We have a Pele PSA 2 Luther Sport that goes for 564. Always a great look on that one. And this one was what we were going to take a peek at. So it makes me wonder, there was a guy a couple weeks ago that was genuinely defending the sale price of this exact card with the 212 at the end of the cert. There are other sales, at least the original sale for this for 2,600 was also 212. So presumably this got shilled the first time, which makes sense. It makes me sleep a little bit easier knowing that this was shilled and no one actually paid that. But then you do, I guess, you sort of have a problem with that setting a comp for the next one, but the next one didn't even follow the comp, right? Like, the next one that sold for 550. So, sure, someone might have been eager to pay a little bit more based on the sale they saw prior, but I doubt they were, you know, really taking it as a comp, which is good. But there was someone in the comments that was basically defending the $2,600 sale. You know, Lamine Yamal's the next guy. People like in-person autos. It's mega cracks. It's, you know, PSA 910, all that good stuff. And yeah, it didn't even get paid. So that is something you have to be weary of. PWCC generally, I'd say, is better than like eBay for sure in terms of percent paid. But there still are some that we see show back up. Typically, I try to call them out if I can see them. Usually it's easier with stuff that's numbered or very unique rather than, say, like a PSA 8 Messi playing career mega cracks or something like that. I can't really tell. But this type of stuff makes it fairly easy. Beyond that, we have an Upper Deck Gold Michael Jordan PSA 10s. They just do crazy prices, so this one will too. 588 there. We have a rookie auto from Jude Bellingham, Finest PSA 10 for 600. This Barbosa from 43 Americana seemed, at least to me, to be a pretty good sale. They didn't put rookie in the title of this, so good on them, I guess. But if we go back and look, basically, there are some Americana sales. I was taking this as sort of a comp for it. 44 Americana 1 year later, but looks pretty good. I think the eye appeal on this is better than the eye appeal on this. This one looks like kind of a mugshot or something. I mean, this one doesn't look great, I will say. This one, you know, very stylish, very spry. It looks a lot better. But this actually does twice as much in the same grade, which I found, you know, kind of impressive. There were some other Americanas, a 49 that sold for 180, a 52 that sold for 86, but generally not something that's easy to find. Above that in this row, you know, to me, it's a pretty easy choice which one I take. I'm always impressed by, in terms of cards, I think soccer, we probably have some of the people that are more dedicated to like memorabilia than cards itself. I think because soccer cards haven't been a thing as long as everything else, so a lot of people are enamored by a lot of different things. But to me, I mean, again, this is a throwback Leaf card. He's playing on PSG at the time. This is a throwback kit with a sticker auto. I'm assuming it's a game-worn patch. I mean, just by the name of it, I would hope. but still $630 for that, and then $750 for a 1/1 with just some little thin slices of Messi's jersey in there. Like, I'd take the Maradona all day. And that's a pretty nice looking Maradona, too. Well centered, it looks, at least from here, not terrible in terms of the edges and corners. I mean, obviously they're going to be rounded a bit, but it is what it is. And yeah, centered, colors, I mean, it's got it all. Then we have some pre-modern and modern. So this R9 went for $800, which felt kind of fair. It was actually lingering fairly low enough to the point where on the final day I was like, hey, I might take a stab at it. Pop 1 of 2, which is sort of why it did a big number. The last Zidane PSA 10 did $350 or something of the sort, but there's more Zidane, so sort of makes sense. And at least to me, as someone that doesn't collect R9, if I wanted a big R9 card that I felt made sense in my collection in some way, I do feel a 2004 Mega Cracks PSA 10 would be the one. I guess I don't have a Messi PSA 10, so maybe it's not 1-to-1, but PSA 6 Henry goes for $780. Looking at comps, that was actually fair. I thought initially it was kind of low, but it seems actually like a decent price. There aren't tons of comps, at least for this grade. There was a 7 in January for $1,500 and an 8 for $1,700. So compared to those, I guess a 6 at probably half the price of an 8 sort of makes sense. This Mbappe silver goes for $810. I looked that one up as well, and over the last year, down 18%. Got a little bit of a bump during the Real Madrid hype, and has sort of subsided since. So we'll see how that goes this year. You would think it's a start of big times for him at Real Madrid, so hopefully that does something for Mbappe. Another loss here on another Garincha. This one, I was sort of, debating pretty heavily, at least in terms of comps. Now, this is going to seem like a super low sale, but I'll justify, at least in my head, why I didn't feel comfortable going higher. So when we look back, this 57 Benassi Garincha has 17 results, which at least for Garincha is decent in terms of pre-58. That's a pretty sizable number. Now, the last comps were a sale here for $870, of course, the one last night. Then we have a PSA 2 for $1,100 and a PSA 1 for $700. So from that perspective, I mean, this was a super low sale, getting a 3 for the price of, a 1 and like a fourth off the price of a 2. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And I would agree. One thing, at least to me, is that some Garincha stuff has dropped a lot since the boom, and some stuff has stayed relatively high. And I feel like this is one that stayed a bit higher. In terms of Garincha, a PSA 1 for $720 is pretty high. I mean, there's not a lot of other Garinchas that you're going to see sell for $720 in a 1. And this one's fairly common. A couple comps that stuck out to me, at least. One during the boom was this, where is it? There's a PSA 5 hiding somewhere in here. Yeah, there it is on Golden. So this PSA 5 sold for $6,600. And at least for me, a lot of Garincha stuff, a lot of the more notable stuff has dropped 70 to 80% since like the peaks in 2022. And, for me, that would mean this PSA 5 is probably worth a little under $2,000, like 1.5 to 2, somewhere in there. And so a PSA 3 would be worth probably half that, so $750 to $1,000, and that's actually where this one went. So I thought it was fair. And then also on pre-boom, this was another one that didn't make me feel great, was a PSA 4 that had sold in 2019 for $357, which now the PSA 3 is selling for like 3 times this almost. And so at least from a Garincha standpoint, that's pretty good. Like a Garincha Vecchi, which is not his rookie, but his earliest gettable item, is basically at pre-boom pricing. So when there's other ones that are 4 times the pre-boom pricing, I'm a little more hesitant, but I do think it's a great sticker, and, I am pretty jealous. I definitely wanted it, so. Is what it is. $870 there on that one. We have a Topps Finest Ronaldo sticker auto that goes for $990. Kylian Mbappe blue for $990. That actually stuck out to me as, kind of a deal. I know people think I hate treble, and, you might be right. I kind of do. But I thought at least comparatively this was a pretty good deal. So one thing I will talk about is the base craze and the people, there's some people that pump base treble. I find that to be pretty egregious because, I think the treble pump was enough. To then pump the bass treble, I mean, man, that's a different level. But an example of it, this PS8 apparently sold for $400 on eBay for a bass. If you're going to buy that, I know $400 and $1,000 are kind of a bit apart, but to get a blue for double the price of a bass is seemingly a no-brainer. Now, I know that you just can't compare comps from different points in time and say, oh, you should have bought this, you should have bought this. Like, we're living in a perfect world here, but, I don't even think they're close in regard to where their pricing should be. So I think relatively, when you compare to, like, base cards, that blue was a pretty good price. And honestly, when you compare to other treble, like, other treble cards do a good number. I would feel a 2018 blue Mbappe should be pretty high, but, I mean, it gets a respectable price, but nothing out of this world. Then we have a Maradona sticker Obsidian 5 of 5 that goes for 1,020. I will say he has some of the least available out of the GOATs in terms of sticker autos, so that's at least, appealing in some regard. I hadn't seen this Rivellino 67 before. I did some searching. I think there's a 66, at least on PSA they grade a 66 item, and PWCC doesn't have this as his rookie. Fanatics collect, whatever. I'll just probably call it PWCC forever. I don't know. But this goes for 1,080. And I did look up comps, and there were actually quite a few comps. So when we look here, the last PSA 1 did 336. There was a PSA 2 prior in 2022 and 2023 that sold for 780 and 870. That had to get rerun, I think. But, 800 near about. And I will say this isn't a great looking copy. Like, I think this too looks a lot better. So I can sort of see that. But this actually does a higher price in 2022, which is pretty impressive. I will say, like, Rivellino, probably not a player that was getting a ton of hype in 2022, and when you don't have anything sell for basically a year and a half, that's going to build up a little bit of demand. But I was surprised by, like, the difference in colors on these. This one's sort of a deep, dark red, and then this one you get sort of an orange, and this one it's sort of a light brown. There's just so many shades, so I find that to be interesting. And that takes us into the top 9, I do believe. We'll start with the 58 Gazzetta, Garrincha, and Pele that goes for 1,300. Pop 1 of 3, just 2 higher. These have come down a good bit. I'd be interested if that pop's correct, because it feels like it's not. I think there's a 7 on auction next week, and if there's only 2 higher and one of them's a 7, that's pretty crazy. But I'm not going to look any deeper. That could be wrong. I feel like I see a decent amount of okay grades on those. Nonetheless, the Figueroa Sport 68 Pele, sort of a tall boy here, pop 1 of 1, none higher. Did take a peek at this, and the all-time high sale was 2,500. This is 1,600, so not the all-time high, but that was sort of peak of the peak. And since then, we actually have never seen anything this high of grade go. I think the 3 miscut might have been among the highest, although a 3 miscut really isn't the highest when you consider the added miscut designation. There was a 3.5 in 2019 that had sold for 174. So a respectable price for 2019, I would say, and definitely a respectable price last night for a PSA 5. This 2022 Ronaldo goes for 2,300. Sticker autos with throwback kits. I mean, man, going for over 2,000 to me is just crazy land. In a world where I'm spending over 2,000 on a soccer card, ideally, at least to me, I'd like to think, like, is this card memorable to anyone, right? And Ronaldo's auto is memorable and it's meaningful, so I get that regard. But, like, this card itself, I don't think so, but to each their own, and it's a pop 1 of 1, so you can brand it that way if you like. Above that, we have a BGS 7, BGS 8 of the Messi Mega Cracks. Now, not too big of a difference. I did take a peek at the subgrades, though, and the 7 had decent subgrades for a 7, while the 8 seemingly had kind of bad subgrades for an 8, so I think that's why they're closer than maybe you would think. But both pretty low, when you consider the price of PSA stuff, but obviously, BGS is in the mud at this point, not even competitive. It is crazy how, in my time in the hobby, BGS went from being the thing. Well, at least whenever I sort of started getting into it, you could see the shift, but now it's worlds apart. It's not even close, which is interesting to see, and has definitely played it out here in this weekly auction. Then we have the BGS 8, Lamine Yamal, out of 5, goes for 4,000. And, what do you say? I mean, Select, you have different levels in Select, so that's seemingly one thing that I should add. Like, this is a high price for any sort of rookie card, but in the sense of Select, which has different levels, you have the green out of 5, which isn't really all that preferred. I mean, obviously you want a 1 of 1 or you want an out of 10 gold, and like the out of 5 greens is sort of a weird spot. And then you have BGS 8, so nothing really going for this card, but it does have a lot of the, basically the one thing that matters, which is rarity, which it's out of 5. So I get that. 4,000 seems like a pretty good price. I think people are baking in the rarity on that one, and I do wonder with Lamine Yamal, like, he's so young that you can sort of sustain the upside and the hype because, he still has, 4 more years until he's 2021, and then his career could begin. And so there's so much time. But at the same time, Barca, at least to me, it seems like Madrid's going to just stomp their way through La Liga and, maybe even Europe as well. I don't see Barca competing for Europe at all. And so it's, what can Lamine Yamal do this year to really sustain those prices? And he can have a great individual season. That's probably enough, especially with how young he is. But at some point, you have to do something with your team. And I guess he already has the Euro, so he's sort of knocked out something. But, you have to keep sustaining or building this hype, and something is needed to do that. So just something to consider. And then the top 3 this week, pretty cool, pretty cool. We have the treble green, which is always a fun one. We'll look at the comp for that. If you know what that leads to, then you know where this is going. But Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi spanning time. So, you know, in a world where people say sometimes that Messi and Ronaldo are nowhere close in pricing, Ronaldo's, you know, so far behind, this is the same exact card for both of them. There's an out of 10. There probably is a 1 of 1, but I'm not sure about that. There's no real other versions of this card, hence why it does so much money in a sticker auto format. So you have a $5,400 Messi and a $4,800 Ronaldo. Both cards are PSA 8, however, the Ronaldo is not graded in terms of the auto and goes off sticker a bit, while the Messi is a PSA 10 auto. So when you kind of consider the auto grades, this is a pretty similar sale, I would say. I mean, it's already pretty similar in terms of pricing, but if you assume the auto grades, it's basically even. And at least to me, that felt something of note. When we look back, I mean, basically a lot of the players that you can find this for actually do have really good pricing as well. Like I think there's a Buffon. Yeah, this is jersey number, but in 2021, this did $1,400. So if Buffons are doing $1,400, I mean, a Messi Ronaldo at 4 to 5K feels like a pretty good price. Maradona also doing 4K back in the day. This is during 2021, and there really haven't been too many to sell since. So there was a Campos one that did 286 recently, but you know that's about it. The last Messi was a PSA 6/9 that did 2,600. Just a couple of years ago. So some pretty good prices there. The Ronaldo actually pre-boom, I saw it originally, I think was like $800 or $900 raw. So, I mean, these were pretty notable cards back in their day. And, of course, we top it off with a 2018 treble. So this is the green out of 10 Messi from 2018 Panini treble, a set that has sort of, you know, gone nuclear since 2021, 2022. I don't know if it was it was spring 2021 or spring 2022. I think it was 22. But coinciding with a particular video made by a particular influencer. If you know, obviously you know. But these things went absolutely crazy and have sort of stayed crazy since, especially, you know, on something as rare as a Messi out of 10 green. So if we look at the pricing for this, this 9 goes for nearly $12,000. The last 8 did 6, and the 8 before that did around about 5. So if you consider the 8s averaging out to like 5,500, you know, a 9 going for double that makes sense at least. The last raw before any of this did 7,900. And then, of course, at the very bottom, there is a comp in 2019 where this card raw did $52. So that's always one that just blows me away and can really go to show that narratives can entirely shift the perception on certain cards for especially certain periods of time, but maybe for the eternity of cards. Who really knows? But that definitely gets a respectable price at nearly $12,000 there and tops this auction block. The one take I'll always have, and I had this before treble was big. Like, I had known trebles. I have had trebles. I had USM&T trebles that I'd looked at, and I was like, you know, they don't really do it for me. Like, at least in my head, if a card is claiming to be one of the best cards, you should be able to take a picture of it on your scanner and have it look good. And this looks terrible. I mean, the thing that actually can look good, if you get it in the right light, there are sort of like these lines that sort of make it like a sunshine behind it with all these colors, and if you can get it in the right light, it does look good. But like, man, that looks pretty putrid if you're just looking at this online. And I know not all cards are going to work the same, but I don't know, I feel like you really got to work with it for that one. So that's going to be it, at least for this weekly. We'll take a peek at next one and see what we got here. So I felt it was a pretty good weekly. I mean, definitely some nice big hitters near the top, and, you know, I felt it was always surprising throughout the middle. I mean, there's always fun stuff in between. But next week, leading the way, though, we have a 2022 Messi and Ronaldo out of 5. That's already at, you know, $7,000 with buyer's premium. We have a BGS 8 Messi. We have a PSA 7 of the Pele Gazzetta. This is actually one with him just by himself. So the one earlier was Pele and Garrincha. Beyond that, PSA 2 of the 77 Crack. We have a 62 Panamba Pele with the accurate sort of slip there by PSA. BGS 85 CR7, we have a blue Messi, a PSA 3 Uvuzela that's already super high. The last PSA 4 did a pretty good price. We have a blue Mbappe, we have a Masters of the Pitch Ronaldinho, we have a PSA 1 Titulares without the star. Oh my gosh, we got a PSA 3 Alifa, we got some number Ronaldo, we got a gold Messi. I just keep scrolling, I see more stuff. We got a Dolar Zamora, Christian Pulisic manga, and I'm sure many, many more. So hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, of course, make sure to leave a like. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the auction, anything you thought sold high, low, maybe something you snagged, let me know down below in a comment. And if you want to see more videos like this as soon as they go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.